Welcome to Journey Through the Gate, the Paranormal Portal podcast, as we delve into the many questions and wonders brought on by this supernatural experience. What's on the other side of the gate? Let's find out together. Howdy, gatekeepers. How y'all doing? Welcome in. Liberty 6. Can you believe it? This has been an absolute blast. It's in my eye there. Let me fix this. I can't even believe we're at 6 already. How y'all doing out there? I see you, Scott. How you doing, sweetheart? How you doing? Henry, how are you doing? Vixen, so good to see you. We missed you the other day in Mystery Surprise Friday. So go and listen to that one. I guarantee you'll get both of them. The last one's a little bit of a twister, though. But we missed you, love. Thanks for being here. Hey, Lulu Bell. Hello, everybody. Echo, wonderful to see you. Wonderful to see you. If I didn't say hello to you, I will catch you back because I want to get this party started. And we will be talking all through this because this is our episode 6. We are finishing up with this wonderful documentary, Liberty, 1997, put out by PBS. And I think it's a wonderful endeavor that they did. I think they did a really good job. I love the actors coming in and speaking from the letters and the journals and the, of course, documents and things that these people wrote, to each other, and, the arguments and the back and forth. I mean, so much was in writing just to get information, and we talked about that on all these episodes about getting across the pond was 6 weeks one way and 6 weeks back. What a big issue that was during all this time. I just love all the way they've done this. I think they did it a great honor. And yesterday I was going through a couple of things for episode 6, this one that we're watching tonight. And I was reading some of the comments that some people had put down on, different websites and stuff about it. And it was funny because one, who knows the age, said, "Who's here having to watch this for school? Whose teacher made them come and watch this?" And I just looked, I thought that was funny. And I see that a lot in the history, documents and stuff like that, especially good ones. But I was never more pleased to see it than on this. And I looked underneath and there was a lot of replies. And there were so many replies from, 10 years back, 9 years back, 8, 5, 2, recent as well. And they were naming off different schools and different places, different teachers that were making them watch this, much to their chagrin. But it wasn't just like high school level. It was, it seemed to be some, courses in college and stuff too. So I was very pleased to see that. It gave me some hope, and I hope it gives you hope too, because somebody somewhere is still teaching this. It's not just us, trying to sort it and watching it together and talking about our personal views and feelings and our opinions on it. But, and having these discussions, I think is wonderful. I'm doing this too. Hey, D-Rock, welcome in. Doing this too. So if you have somebody that doesn't know this or would like to see this series, it is available. Again, we'll drop it throughout on archives.gov. So if you put in Liberty, PBS, documentary, archives.gov, it'll pop up all 6 episodes without commercial free. And you can watch it on whatever, device you choose, and I highly recommend you do so. if you haven't seen it all the way through. It's absolutely wonderful. So before I get into answering questions and saying hi to everybody else, I wanted to get Lynn in here because it's been so wonderful to have her back. She's been running around. She's been spreading her love, spreading her information, selling those books, and has a wonderful table she's put together. I've seen some of the lovely things she has there. Maybe, I don't know if you can get them at her website or maybe just come and see her in person. But she's also has all these wonderful interviews out there. She's on Gaia with George Norrie. She's just recently did a radio show with Steve and we had a blast. So let's get in here and let's do Liberty Part 6 with a wonderful author and just so many wonderful other things. The lists are too long. Miss Lynn Monet. Hello, sweetie.
Hi, everybody. I'm so glad to be here. I didn't have
The
my
purple
shirt on tonight. I'm sorry.
No, it's the purple. I love the royal purple.
Oh, thank you.
I love the royal purple. It's wonderful. You look wonderful. So you've been so busy. Tell us a little bit. Tell us a little bit more because you had some things pop up today that were kind of new, I thought.
Yeah. Things have just been crazy. I've been to Louisiana, been to Florida, been to Pennsylvania, was supposed to go to Tennessee, but I hit a deer in the process coming back through Virginia. I've got, they're in the process of planning a show at the Eisenhower for me to come back September, October to be a speaker there.
October.
Yeah.
In October.
Woohoo.
I'm telling you, it's nothing better. Nothing better. Now, I'll tell you, I had some news, and I may have mentioned this on another episode, but, I just find it just absolutely Looney Tunes. But, you have to respect national parks. You can no longer even so much as tell a ghost story on the battlefield in Gettysburg. It was for, you couldn't bring equipment. You couldn't do, paranormal research. They just don't want anything ghost from the minute you hit that gate going in, talk all the history you want. So it's almost like a little like doing shows on certain channels where you have to use like code words so you could tell us like, here's a story about such and such, come up with different, I don't know. But it's a $10,000 fine. They're not playing. How they enforce that, I do not know.
I wonder why they're doing that, because the Airbnb that we stayed at had lots of invisible guests there that wanted to play. And so I'll just leave it at that. I mean,
very cool. Well, the whole place is a daggum battlefield. It's just, you can't just, on their land, on the national park, I believe it is. If I'm wrong, please, tell me. But yeah, Jim told me, Jim from Hoover House from Keystone State Paranormal. And I said, well, their loss. I mean, Waynesboro's gained because they're already trying to set up all where Lee went through and when he left Gettysburg, and there's a big encampment there, and you can camp out and you can paranormal investigate, and there's all kind of things going on there. But there is also in the town, don't get me wrong, all the ghost tours and everything's still in town, and the Farnsworth, and there's still a ton of paranormal to do. And you're going to have to go with me. I had to drag Bowden, and I'm like, get in the car. This is what we're doing. And I put Mark Nesbitt in the, hooked it up to the Bluetooth, and we did the tour. And, you got to just bang, 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 bang. Let's go get onion soup at the haunted, pub. What is it? Is it the Dun? It'll come to me. Not the Dunworth? I can't remember. But anyway, it's the oldest building there, which is saying something, in downtown. And they have the best food, and it was used as a hospital, and just the stones. It's an old dark pub with with the gray stone. Oh, God, I love that place. And the wrought iron, black wrought iron. Just, my kind of digs. So anyhow, you've been so busy and so blessed, and I think it's wonderful. And I wanted to tell you, I saw that video that you put up. You must have did a short or something. And you were, what podcast is that? Did you do a little short about a podcast where you were talking to a gentleman with a beard, and it was just a little clip, or was that them?
No,
did they put it up?
Yeah, that was Ryder Lee, and he's one of the producers for the JFKX, along with oh gosh, his name has just slipped my mind. And
I didn't mean to put you on spot. I just thought, let's promote that because it looked interesting. It looked like a good interview.
It is. And he went ahead and he made those for me to go ahead and put out. So I've been putting them out, and I'm trying to figure some of my Gaia stuff. The pictures aren't coming up. So I've got to figure out how to do that, to get that out there more. But I do have a lot of things coming up. As you know, I'm here with Cisco, the until this series is finished, but also the last Sunday of every month, unless she wants me on more often than that. I'm going to be doing Tuesdays twice a month with Aquarius Rising in Africa coming up as well. I just did a show last night on the skeptic, and so that's now posted out on YouTube and running. And before I came on here, I was on the melt. So it's
Very
been
cool.
yeah,
So
it's been
so much fun.
busy.
So much, and that's it. You get it. Thank you so much, the Dobbins house. I've been running all day trying to get this done, getting other stuff done. Thank you, Uncommon, and welcome in. And who else slid in? Somebody else slid in, I missed. But anyhow, that's fantastic. And that's just what everybody, you don't realize you have to hit the ground running. You have to do all these. It's like so many different shows, and you keep your stuff out there and keep relevant, and trying to hang out with just your friends and just trying to get a little bit of what you enjoy too. You know what I mean?
Yes,
You don't want to
absolutely.
get, like I said, with, you used to enjoy playing basketball under the streetlights with your friends in the neighborhood, and then by the time you get up to playing any kind of ball with, that kind of restrictions, and they just kick all the fun out of it. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
want to enjoy it. So make sure you enjoy what you're doing, and I know you are. So, and
Well,
you're
thank
just
you.
doing the
I'm
shows.
I'm honored to be here with you and to get to
It's
be
so
with
much fun.
everybody. And again, I can't see the chat, but I love everybody, and I'm
Oh
sending
gosh.
a trillion times.
Well,
of
let's
bacon
get some messages up here for you. Let's see. Oh, I knew I missed somebody. Ian. I missed Ian. Hello, Ian. He didn't have pizza yet.
Hello.
Scott's life is here. Hey, Scott. And
Hey,
Froze is
Scott.
here. Froze has been watching along with us. I know he has. He loves this history stuff. It's going to be a real good one tonight, Froze. I mean, I'm telling you, I hate to see it go. I just absolutely love this series. I thought it was great. And you having to dig into each, section of it too. I go deeper down the rabbit holes and everything else. Vixen is here and sends love. And let's see, Lulu Bell is here and sends love. And of course, I'm here and I send love and light to everybody. I know you guys are having a crazy, wherever you may be. I'm sure everything is just, upside down world. But right here, right now, for this 2 hours, we might go a little over. I told Lynn that because we're trying to get everything packed into this one and finish it, and then go into Sons of Liberty, which is going to be fun for Lynn and I. Just saying.
Yes.
And because we have to write down all the stuff that they exaggerated or changed completely. And that's going to be fun for you guys, because what you guys are going to be doing at the same time. If you want to watch Sons of Liberty, it is available, I think, on Tubi, Plex, and a couple other things for free. I think it's on Daily Motion, and it's on all the, your streaming channels, of course. But it's 3 episodes. I think they're somewhere around an hour and a half a piece, maybe 2 hours. So you about 6 hours of content. And boy, do they have fast and loose with that with that whole thing. But it's fun. It's really, really good, and they were honest about it going in. They said, we're just going to take the names and the, everything else to try to see more of what it must have been like to be them. But they took Samuel Adams, who was like, I think 42 when all this started, and made him like 22 and put him in some hot leather breeches, and all this, which is, again, they were young at sometimes. So, so we'll watch that. But at the same time, I want you guys to watch it. And then we're going to try to tell the story kind of a little quicker with that one, because we won't be able to watch it live on here, through stills and just what Lynn and I pick up from it. And then you guys throw in what you saw and what you caught. So that'll be good. And then we can get into Turn, which is what I'm really excited about. And that's basically taking everything we've learned from this, what we've learned to not believe from the Sons of Liberty, and what was fact and fiction, and then get into Turn, which does a much better job at staying historically accurate. They do have a little Titanic kind of Rose Jack thing going on, and Lynn and I by then will be experts, and we'll be able to tell you, what's going on with it.
Yeah,
and so will you.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I am so shocked at the lies. I mean, just the way that we've been taught things, and how many mistruths there are to it, and it's kind of nice to get the clarity, because the clarity makes more sense.
So it's so wonderful, and I was so pleased, like I said in the comments when I was reading, and this is not just one video, it's been throughout this whole experience that I've been researching, and seeing how many people are saying watch this for school, or watch this about the Constitution or the Bill of Rights. And of course, that's what we have tonight. We've started this, I wonder if anybody was amazed at how early this started, because again, they kind of pinpoint everything around the Stamp Act. Yeah.
Hmm.
And that was the straw that broke the old camel's back, or, however else you want to put that. But it really started much earlier. This isn't all a rumbling and a bumbling. And, people are, again, these are all separate states. And the people who are in these states consider their country to be Virginia, Massachusetts, Georgia, and again, living amongst people that you disagree with wholeheartedly, and little at a time, you feel yourself starting to separate from your neighbors, from the people that you see every day. Maybe the people that, if you're, in William and Mary College, or whatever, maybe, separate parts of that debate. And it keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And to the point of where we talked about, Sam Adams and everybody, like, they're pushing the propaganda, Paul Revere, everybody else. And Thomas Paine is writing Common Sense. And Ben Franklin is putting words to paper and trying to convince everybody. And you've got all these people from the inner city out. So it's much harder for the people in the rural. By the time they're getting information, Lynn, I can't imagine how old it is,
I know,
because
right?
yeah, you got to have heralds read this stuff in the streets. The Declaration of Independence is read on, I believe, July 8th out in the courtyard. And that's the first time it was ever read aloud to everyone. Not everybody was literate. Not everybody could read. A lot of this stuff was put up on broadsides, nailed to a barn, nailed to a business, a common area, for people to go up and read, or have somebody read it to them. But this is a big deal, and the word starts to spread, and you start to realize how not just people in other countries are feeling about this, but people in other states, and how they differ. Yeah, and you got a lot from that. A lot of the soldiers talking about, having to bunk with or fight alongside of Maine guys, and he's from Virginia. They don't even understand what each other are saying. Like, it's different languages. It's so different, the different worlds in each one of these states. And I think it's funny how even still there's a little bit of that left, Lynn. 248 years is a little bit of that left. And I think that's very precious, to hold that culture. I mean, even if you're a country, to hold that culture, for the Irish to be Irish, for the French to be French, love the French, and for different people. We used to have here in New York, it was, little Italy, and little Korea, and little bit, all these different, and still it's so important to hold on to that culture. And I think I understood that a lot with the tribal, and trying to hold on that culture. And there's still that battle if you go to a powwow, and if it's not all one tribe and it's a mix, like it's everybody mixed together, and to see how much difference, similar but different things that each tribe is held on to, that was very precious to them. So that's so important. And I think it shows here in the beginning of this, because you are going to get a little bit of that, hey, we fought together, we've won the war, or such as it is. It took a long time for that information to drizzle out. People were still fighting, very much like Civil War went on for another 6 months, I think, before the fighting finally halted, and here it was a little longer. But now you've got to struggle to get back up on your feet. And this is in where the problem lies. But so what is there anything you wanted to say about all that? I know that's a lot of information all at once,
No,
but I'm just trying to catch up.
no, I'm really like the how they finished this out.
Yeah.
How they finished this out. They did very, very well with that. I mean, this is where, Washington retires. So you've got this big person, retiring, but then he kind of comes back out of retirement down the way, and the Constitution is made, and yeah,
Yeah.
it definitely brings it all together, um, and yeah, I'm learning so much from it, because
Yeah.
I didn't realize how many things were not correct. So
Mhm.
I'm glad to be here and be
And
part
so
of it.
many of the little legends that were made up, and like we say, even in the paranormal, and Steve says it, I think almost every time we're together, one of us says it. Why are you making stuff up? The facts are so incredible,
I
left the way
know,
they are.
right?
And they're
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
meaningful. And when you go back to just the facts, everything snaps together, and you can see it happening, because you can see it happening now. You can see, how human character has stayed the same, how we're so very, still so very similar in so many ways in 250 years. It's just, I think, over that time, the things that we've lost, has been more of a focus, maybe a little too much extra time, because then, you're still getting up early in the morning, collapsing in bed at night. If you were lucky enough to get the firewood chopped, find dinner, clean dinner, prepare dinner, do the laundry on a rock, whatever it was you were doing. I watched the lady today in one of the little shows where she was showing how to waterproof the ships. And they said a lot of the people in the workhouses would do this work. And we've all seen that kind of thing, kind of a Dickens kind of boot, black tar, factories and workhouses and things. But she was taking rope, and you have to split it apart. It was very much like a hemp rope, probably was hemp, and pull it all apart, make it kind of fluffy, fold it over on itself in this kind of twisted braided thing. And then you have to hammer it into the cracks, and then somebody would come behind and pour tar over that into this groove, and then you'd actually go back over that and carve it to where it would be smooth black line. And this is how they sealed the boats. And I get caught up in these things. I'll watch about 20 of those. Oh my gosh, I can't imagine having to do all this in a day. The stuff you have to do. Hey, Ghost Dancer, welcome in. Now, if anybody sees Ghost Lore sneak in here, Kat, she sent me a little video. She's been doing a couple of colonial recipes off to the side. And of course, I've been trying to collect them. And, we've all been kind of throwing them back and forth. So I have a couple of those, but I'd love to play it if she pops in. So remind me if I forget. I don't want to get through tonight without at least playing it. So if she doesn't come in till the end, we'll get it there. But I do have something that kind of catches us up and kind of gets us ready for this one. Lynn, are you ready to roll, baby girl? You ready?
I am. I would like to say one thing though. The drum rolls. Tonight is the night. Anybody that donates $25 or more to Cisco gets a free copy of an ebook of their choice of the books that I have. Currently, I have 4 of them out. My 5th one's coming out the end of September. If you want to tag me in, I'll also
what a way to celebrate
in the bunch if you wish, but you'll have to wait for that one to come out. So definitely an ebook tonight during the process, $25 and over to Cisco and Journey Through the Gate, and a free ebook from Lynn Monet.
There you go. Wonderful. Yep. Thank you, sweetie, for doing that.
One more thing. How that works is that
the email.
Yeah, you can either send it to Cisco or me, either one, and then eventually it comes to me, and you let me know which book that you want so that I can drop it in the email and send it to you. But I will copy Cisco in on it so that she knows
that I know that it's good,
that you've received it.
So like a couple of people, because I like to keep an eye on that, and it gets hard if I don't have the emails, and then if somebody will email me and then I email them. Just CC us each other, and we'll make sure you get it, and you won't be sorry because they're great books.
That's right.
And so there you go. I got caught up in my wires. All right. So let me see. How did I have this done? Okay. A couple little surprises for y'all. This will be fun. Woo-hoo. But let me go ahead and set it up this way. Okay. So tonight is kind of like, going full circle. Okay. So we're finishing up here. If you remember the first place, who can tell me the first place Congress and it wasn't called Congress yet, so I don't want to trick you, but the gentleman that would finally wind up moving in, to Congress, where was the first place they met? And I'll accept 2 answers for that. So it depends on who you're thinking of. If you're thinking of Samuel Adams and Paul Revere and John Adams being Sam's cousin, if you're thinking about those guys, or if you're thinking about them after they started talking to people like Ben Franklin and Patrick Henry, and all these guys knew each other from going to school. Some of them went to college together. Some of them met in the courtroom, being lawyers. Some of them met because they were all planters or whatever. Boston Tea Party Ghost Dancer says no, that's not the first place they met, but We're going to see a little interesting tidbit on that tonight that we talked about in the second episode. That's a really interesting bit of trivia, and I'm going to remind you of that. This is kind of beginning, end, and beginning, end all night long here tonight. But the first place, one of the accepted answers would be the big elm tree in downtown Boston Square in Boston, Massachusetts. Yep, it was a pub. Henry's got it. And does anybody remember the name of the pub? It's such a delay here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and start, and I'll be looking for the answers. But there was also a beginning and an end here. The second, the real meeting house that they met at was not called Independence Hall at the time. It was just the State House. And of course, in Philadelphia, in Pennsylvania, there really wasn't a capital yet. There wasn't anything like that yet. And it like I said, it wasn't even called Independence Hall. It was called the State House and left in great disrepair after everything was forgotten, so easily forgotten, a place like this. Until into the 1800s, early 1800s, Lafayette, the Marquis de Lafayette, that helped us so much out in the Revolutionary War, a wonderful guy. He was 19 at the time. He came through, and he was going through a tour through the states, and saw the disrepair, and started a campaign to get it repaired. And he was the one who dubbed it Independence Hall. So I don't know if you guys have ever been there. I don't know if you've ever seen Independence Hall, but of course, everything kind of started there. That was the meeting place. This is where things were discussed and people were screamed at, where I promise you the issues of slavery and the, discontinuing that, or the slowing it down, or putting a year on it. It's like, 5 years and done, no more new stuff. Green Dragon. Thank you, Froze. There you go. He gets the badge. He gets the dragon badge tonight. All of these things were discussed. And I think it's sad when, you hear about nobody ever did anything. Nobody ever said anything. People almost killed each other over this. But you have to also understand what's going on. There were tribal Indians that owned Indians. There were people, let me tell you something, the people that trapped people in Africa, they were the same color and they held them in cages on the beaches and sold them to these people. Everybody had a hand in this evil. Every culture, poor, rich to poor, it's throughout history. And the fact that it took so long for humans to realize all human beings are the same is absolutely, I think, the most confusing question I have about the whole thing, because I'll sit there and think about, okay, we had to strike it out of the Declaration of Independence because we would have never got it passed. They let it go thinking they'll pick it up in a couple months, and then it gets pushed and pushed and pushed. And then you've got 100 years to Lincoln, and then you've got and it blows my mind because human beings, but don't let anybody tell you that one was more, because listen, in this war, I'm going to show you a little piece here in a little bit. Even the tribes didn't know who to fight with or who to listen to. My own people, I was Cherokee and Lenape in my blood, and the Lenape, half of them were split with fighting with the Americans, and the other half just went, we're neutral, we're Switzerland, we're not going to get involved, we're trying to stay out of it because we don't trust either one. And keep in mind, we were mostly in Pennsylvania and all toward the shore, New York and Jersey, all in that area. We got pushed all the way to Oklahoma, So we were some of the first ones, the Lenapes and and the Iroquois, everybody to sign treaties. And if you ever heard of the Walking Treaty, where we'll take land as long as one man can walk in a day. And a man can walk in a day. And what they did was they agreed to that because it made sense to us to go, okay, we kind of know how long it takes to walk. All right, that's a good thing. And what the people that made this agreement with the Lenape ran a relay and ran, and they used 10 men. So they took more and more and more. And that is definitely a metaphor for everything that came in the next, couple of hundred years, You see what I'm saying? So nobody has the monopoly on being good and righteous, not even the founding fathers. They admitted to the propaganda and the pushing and making it sound worse than it was to get the right reaction, to get things moving. And of course, Lynn brought up the whole fact that now we look at history and what do you mean George Washington didn't chop down the cherry tree? And it's weird the things we remember. So if you've never been to Independence Hall was there in the beginning and it was there at the end where we're going to see tonight, because that's where the Bill of Rights and the Constitution and our new nation was argued over, with the windows closed at about 92 degrees. And everybody kept the secret of what was going on. It was probably the only time that ever happened. But if you've never been there, this is a little treat. Now, this is a channel. I believe the gentleman's name is Michael. Did a fine job. And we've got ourselves a real little treat here, folks. It's about 8 minutes, Lynn.
Okay.
Fantastic.
When things go sideways, will you be prepared?
Yes, I will be.
Are you still interested in a solar-powered generator? Because we pay special attention.
Sorry, guys. It's a treat. This guy does a great job. Can you hear it?
Welcome to Independence Hall, and we are standing in the courtroom where Pennsylvania's Supreme Court met. And this was the site of a very symbolic event that occurred on the 8th of July, 1776. On that day, the Declaration of Independence was read to the public for the very first time. That happened out in the yard beyond the tower of this building. After the Declaration of Independence was read, 8 members of the audience came into this courtroom, and they climbed up behind the judge's bench. That painting is the coat of arms of Pennsylvania. That was painted in 1785 specifically to hang in that space. Of course, in 1776, something that looked just like this was hanging up there. And of course, this is the coat of arms of Great Britain, the symbol of King George III's royal authority here. Those 8 men pried the British coat of arms off the wall. For a few hours, they dragged them through the streets of Philadelphia so all the citizens would get a very good chance to properly use them, and then they set them on fire. And of course, they did all this to make a very simple but a very important point. King George III and his government no longer held any more power or authority here. Now, certainly desecrating and then burning the British coat of arms, that was an act of treason. It was minor compared to all the acts of treason that occurred in the room just behind you. So if you turn around and go across the hall, move into the assembly room, that is where the Declaration of Independence and the United States Constitution will both sign. Again, please do make sure all the shorter folks are up in the front, taller folks in the back, please.
Here we go. No pushy, no shovey. I've stood here. This is an amazing place to stand. It really is.
We're in the assembly room where Pennsylvania's legislature met. They moved upstairs to make way for Congress. Congress began meeting here in May of 1775. It was not until July of 1776 when the men in this room could actually bring themselves to admit that they had exhausted every other option. Independence from Great Britain was the only option they had left. And we actually celebrate the long day. Congress declared independence in this room on the 2nd of July, 1776, when they voted to adopt a resolution proposed by Richard Henry Lee of Virginia. His resolution stated that these united colonies are, and upright ought to be, free and independent states. 2 days later, on the 4th of July, Congress voted to adopt the amended text of the Declaration of Independence written by Thomas Jefferson. And of course, the last thing the men in this room were all worried about is which state of heritage should be celebrated. Because as far as most of these men were concerned, there was little to celebrate. In declaring independence, they were now formally going to war with the strongest power in Europe. It did not take Congress long to realize achieving independence was going to be much more difficult than simply declaring it. And certainly when Congress declared independence here, they had no idea how independence was going to be achieved. Now certainly they figured that out.
Do a panorama.
That's Mike.
Isaac Norris, Speaker of the Colonial Pennsylvania Assembly, ordered a bell with a biblical inscription for the State House in Philadelphia. Originally called the State House Bell, it would later be known by a name familiar to all.
Let the bell be cast by the best workman, with the following words well shaped in large letters round it. Proclaim liberty throughout all the land to all the inhabitants thereof.
The bell was often rung to summon members of the Assembly, like Benjamin Franklin, to meetings.
The bell rings and I must go among the grave ones and talk politics.
It also rang to inform citizens of important announcements in the State House Square. And on July 8, 1776, an eager crowd gathered there to hear John Nixon give the first public reading of the Declaration of Independence.
We hold these truths.
The city's bells rang out in celebration, so loud and so glorious that John Adams wrote,
The bells rang all day and all night.
Perhaps the State House bell rang with all the others on that important day too, for the patriot spirit became...
I like you can get in there for free, no tickets. Go see it.
So the bell that you're looking at, the Liberty Bell, rang for 93 years, and it began to get a crack in it. We're not really sure when the crack occurred, but we do know when they tried to fix it in 1846, because they wanted to ring it daily for George Washington's birthday. Well, there was a hairline crack right where that large thing is. That's actually the repair of the crack, because the crack is only as thin as a piece of hair. So what they did is they called stop filling. What you do is you make the crack really big. So this way, then when it rings, it can't rub against each other. And so they did that in 1846. The intention then was to ring it all day long. As they're ringing it, about 3 hours into the ringing, they start hearing that metal against metal sound. They get really worried. They go up into the tower. They notice now that the hairline crack goes through the crown of the bell, up to the word "and," where it says "cast and stow," up to the word "the," and even to the word "liberty." And once it gets up there, you can't ring it any longer because you can't make that crack large like it did this one without a whole side would come off. So the last time it rang was in 1846. And the abolitionists are really the ones that saved it in the 1830s, because up until that point, it was just basically a bell. The abolitionists read the inscription on the top from the Bible, Leviticus 25, verse 10. It says, "Proclaim liberty throughout all the land unto all the inhabitants thereof." And they said that would be the perfect symbol for the anti-slavery movement. And so they wrote a poem about the bell, and it's called the Philadelphia Liberty Bell. So up until the 1830s, that wasn't really a bell that they were going to save. And then it's really the abolitionists who saved it in the 1830s. Then they repaired it in 1846. And then after that, they couldn't ring it any longer. And then the whole idea about liberty became even more expanded. It then represented women's rights, and it talks about now human rights around the world. So now it's an international symbol.
How about that? There's Mike. Thanks, Mike. Or Chris Mitchell. That's why I was calling him Mike. So that is over here on his channel. And it is called Christopher Mitchell. I'm sorry I called you Mike, Chris. And it is called Independence Hall and Liberty Bell. And he popped that up 11 years ago, and it's got 21,000 views. And it just got another one. Thank you so much for doing that. I thought that was extremely interesting.
So did I.
What a treat. What a treat.
Absolutely.
So much happened in that building. So much happened in that building. Can you imagine? You've got these delegates from all these states coming through, and, you know, all the different personalities, all the different agendas, all the different messages from their people in that state. And they got to go back and face those people after, weeks and months in some cases. It's just, when we say it so simply, Revolutionary War. Did anybody know that it took 25 years from this? The Stamp Act, like we said, it definitely rumbled before, until 87. 25 years.
Wow.
Yeah, it's quite the thing. Okay, next thing I've got is this little ditty, and then we'll get started on it's this one down here. Okay. Now this is kind of cool. Lynn and I pick people or to feature, or and I say, one or two people that you wanted to mention something about, or you want me to grab pictures, or we'll throw some extras up there. I think I've had Sam Adams and George Washington, and I know you did Martha Washington, and so many different characters, and they're all so deep. And I think each one we could do 10 episodes on every person, I think, or every there's so many different things. I think that's the point of this. Everything spider webs out, and there's so many deep, wonderful people that might have been one little cog in the wheel here, that if it wasn't for them, the next gear wouldn't work. And then, it's almost like gears in the teeth that mix, it's amazing. And I know that's the way it's like here. It's like the butterfly effect. It's like, the pebble in the lake with the ripples is everything. And this whole situation with each person, would it have gone the way it was if they didn't do the Boston Tea Party? Would the king have made his next move? So it's another lesson in playing out everything too. If you're going to play chess, you have to be, 5 moves ahead, and I think that's the way you need to think too. I think what they've done is they've really made us, Lynn, with that goldfish kind of attention span in a lot of ways. And it's not, we're just trying to get through our day, get to our paycheck, pay our bills, and maybe, get an hour on the couch and TV and watch some rom-com or something with your kids, or help them with homework, and you bang, do it the next day. You blink, it's 40 years.
Oh, I know, right? Yeah.
And people don't remember to stop and, smell the roses, so to speak, and enjoy the things, and here these people, all they were trying to do was just be free. And their neighbor might go say, I like it the way it is. And this is what they're up against. And you're going to see when we play the Liberty, what happened to people like that. You couldn't really stay. It wasn't safe. It's just so many things you wouldn't think that happened. It happened right here. So this is one of my little featurettes, but it's a short little 7-minute. I'm going to grab some hot water, but I'll be right back. And I think it's very interesting to think about the people. I know it sounds crazy to say, but you're a person. You're no less important than any one of the people that we've talked about, or they've talked about in these 6 episodes, and I want you to think about that, because things affect you now, and things affected people then, and it made them react. And how they reacted, I think, had a lot with how each person turned out, if that makes sense. So there's lessons to be learned here. Here we go. Getting hot water, baby. You good?
Okay. Yeah, I'm good.
Crispy. It looks so good in that hat. Little tri-corner. Remember all of these people? Amazing. Molly Pitcher. Over 25,000 American soldiers. You know, they left widows and orphans to hack it out of the wilderness and deal with what they had to deal with. So many different people. Yep. Imagine. Here's to you, Constitution. Hang in there, baby. Those two. So many. Lafayette. There's so many different people. They were from Poland. They were from Germany. They're all over. And the Iroquois Confederation. We kind of split. Amazing. Look at all the different ones fighting together. How did you know? How did you know who to fight? Amazing. This young lady. Phyllis Wheatley. She was about 20 years old. We're not sure how old she was. Out of West Africa. And she was sold to a family in Boston, Massachusetts. But they taught her, they schooled her, taught her how to read and write. She wrote a book. She was the first African-American woman to publish a book of poetry. And it happened to be shipped on one of the ships from the Boston Tea Party, the Dartmouth. They threw out all the tea, but they left the crates that had her books in it alone. She wrote letters back and forth to George Washington, who thought she was a wonderful poet. She thought he was amazing. The other woman I want to tell you about is Mom Bet, Elizabeth Freeman. And I'll read you that quote. Let me go back and read that to you because it's too important to miss. But I was rushing before the show, so this is so important. Elizabeth Freeman. Anytime, while I was a slave, if 1 minute's freedom had been offered to me, and I had been told I must die at the end of that minute, I would have taken it just to stand 1 minute on God's earth, a free woman. I would. This quote beautifully captures her profound yearning for freedom and the immense value that she placed on it. That's her. And she picked that name, Elizabeth Freeman. It's not a coincidence. She picked it. Let's ask you this. If it was being written right now, about a place you loved, who would you have been most like? Molly Pitcher, Washington, Franklin? How about Little Liberty Boy, Christopher Sider? Maybe Abigail Adams, fighting for women, foreign friends like Lafayette, who didn't have freedom in their countries and envied us for it and helped us fight to get it. And all the men and their women that fought to put together the Constitution. And like Ben Franklin said, a republic, if we can keep it. If we can keep it. And there she is. We the people. No glory. And crispy. Long may she wave. Well, there you go. So you've got bookends. You've got Phyllis Wheatley, who was somewhere around 20 years old. She gets I know it sounds awful to say, lucky enough to be with a family who who taught her to read and to write, and just absolutely was astonished at her ability, for poetry and the writing and her thoughts on patriotism and freedom. And the whole time I can just picture all these people staring, and she's still a slave. And they're all saying, isn't it wonderful that she knows all these, about freedom? And it's like crazy. She eventually, got her freedom, of course. But, even though she knew so many good people, just circumstances and everything else, she wound up being very destitute, very poor at the end. I believe she died young in complications of childbirth. It's hard to find out, and I didn't have a lot of time to really dig down deep. And I wanted to focus more on the fact that there she was in the Boston Tea Party. Here comes this ship, that's so made so famous. Of course, we know what happened on other ships too, they about 6-7 times, but this one was famous because the Sons of Liberty was on it and made it a big deal, and it was kind of like the crescendo to the king. But there's her books coming in, all printed, coming into Boston, Mass, to be sold and distributed. And it's a young slave girl of 20 who's writing poems about morals and freedom. You get hit in the face with the irony,
Yes.
and it wasn't lost on me. And then you have Mum Bet. Now, Mum was a wonderful, it's kind of like the English mum, but being used where she was in Massachusetts, she that was an honor. She was a midwife and herbalist and everything else, but she did something that was just absolutely amazing. When these men were in the working through the Constitution, and you're trying to sort it, because you'll see why we had to do that, because the states weren't quite getting along. You don't just end a war and everything go, rosy in pieces, kumbaya. Takes some time, a lot of time apparently. And so Massachusetts is coming up with their own constitution. Where she's hearing all these lawyers and people come to that home and talk about these things that are going on, and working out words for the Constitution for Massachusetts. So she overhears some stuff and it inspires her, and you'll see why in a minute. And at the same time, you've also got them in Philadelphia, trying to work out this Constitution as far as, how can we have a government that isn't like having a monarchy? And what they do is more than one person in Independence Hall, if you want to call it that, they lean to the Iroquois Nation and the tribes that they had been working with through, multiple things, whether it be fighting with them in the 1812 war or this last one or whatever. They found out that they had quite the form of government, really, how they led, and so much of the way the Iroquois had their stuff together wound up in our Constitution. And I just think it's, again, hysterical. We got the roads named after us, the lakes, we're part of the Constitution. People, the stuff is written, every single one of them written on hemp paper. It's just all the irony, it's an amazing thing to see all of this at the same time happening. And you can look at it and say timing wasn't the right timing. It wasn't. But you had these people who said no more and reached out and did something about it time after time. You hear about the so many different cases of people fighting for their freedom, Native Americans that are helping us hold on to the colonies that we just stole from the Native Americans. It can be mind-boggling, but it's almost inevitable, the growth, right? But how can you be a decent person in all that turmoil, in all of that, tremendous times of change? And, it seemed like like I said, again, from the beginning, there wasn't all good or all bad on any side. There was so much going on that needed to be sorted. And this woman, she kind of had the nerve to do it. This one is about 6 minutes, I think. All right. Lynn, do you want to say anything, hon? I'm gonna load this up.
I'm just enjoying it, but I will say that a lot of women did die in childbirth
Mm-hmm.
during that time because of the lack of hand washing.
Oh gosh, yeah.
When they started washing their hands, the birth rate went up and moms stopped dying.
Guess when all that started happening? Now, midwives were one to bring it forward, but I'll tell you what, Civil War was when they started boiling water and washing hands and washing equipment and stuff like that. So almost another 100 years. Go figure. Something so simple, but it boggles the mind. So this is a little bit about a lady that was all heart, Miss Elizabeth Freeman. Let's see if we can get this coming up with no commercials.
So we're standing in front of the Colonel John Ashley House. It was built in 1735, and it was one of 12 enslaved households in Sheffield, Massachusetts in the 18th century. I'm Mark Wilson, Associate Curator with the Trustees of Reservations. So Sheffield in the early 18th century was a very rural farming community. It was located far away from the center of activity in Boston. It's in the lower, far southwestern portion of Massachusetts. They did shipping along the Housatonic River that's located nearby. They cut timber. They also produced iron ore. There's large iron deposits in the mountains surrounding us, and there were foundries throughout the valleys here that produced iron for goods sold throughout the colonies. So for the Ashley House, it was built in 1735 by John and Hannah Ashley, and it was one of the earliest houses built in Berkshire County. John Ashley came out from Westfield, Massachusetts. He purchased close to 3,000 acres of land, so he was a very large and significant member of this community. Most of that land was used for farming up until his death in 1802. Slavery in Massachusetts in the 18th century, it's something that began in 1640s, and households with slaves typically had 4 to 6 enslaved members of that household. And they were working in the fields, they were running farms, and they were also inside the house. And in this house, there were 5 people who were enslaved: Brom, Zach, John, Harry, and a woman named Bet. And what we know of Bet is that she was born in the Hudson River Valley around 1740. She was born into slavery. She was owned by a man named Peter Hoggaboom of Claverack, New York. Eventually, she came to this household. She was either an inheritance or she was purchased by Hannah and John. Hannah was Peter's daughter. So there was a family connection that brought her, Bet, to this home. And when Bet was here, she was working inside the house. She was cooking, she was cleaning, she was taking care of the needs of the household. She was also a midwife and a nurse, and after time, known for her skills taking care of people within the community here in Sheffield and the surrounding towns. And in 1773, a very important event took place here. It was writing of the Sheffield Resolves, which was a statement of grievances by the colonists against British rule. And in that document, there was a line that Bet heard many times, It reads, "Mankind in a state of nature are equal, free, and independent of each other, and have a right to the undisturbed enjoyment of their lives, their liberty, and property." And this would be significant for a woman who was born into slavery and spent her entire life serving the needs of other people. So for Bet, in 1781, she makes the decision to sue for her freedom. And this is after years of listening to the words spoken from the Sheffield Resolves, the Declaration of Independence, and the new Massachusetts state constitution. And to do so, she goes to the home of Theodore Sedgwick, the young lawyer who helped to write the Sheffield Resolves, and asks for his help as a lawyer to sue for her freedom. And they bring forward a case that under the new state constitution, slavery is illegal. In April 1781, the case is heard, and in August of 1781, a judgment is rendered freeing Elizabeth from slavery. And at that point in her life, she then gets a new name. She goes from Bet to Elizabeth Freeman, a name that she chose. And it was an intentional choice on her part to celebrate her new life and to lead her new life. John Ashley, from whose bond she was freed, asks her to return to the household as a paid servant, but she says no, and she goes to work in the household of the Sedgwick family. In 1790, Elizabeth, who had been living with the Sedgwick family for 5 years, moves with them to their new home in Stockbridge. And in Stockbridge, she gets another name, Mum Bet. This is the third name she's known as. And Mum is an important term of endearment and respect, and it shows her place within the community. And for the remainder of her life until her death in 1829, Elizabeth continues to work with the Sedgwick family. She also becomes a landowner, purchasing 19 acres and building a house and farm on a hill overlooking the center of Stockbridge. At the time of her death, because she couldn't read or write, she had her will transcribed by Theodore Sedgwick, the lawyer who took care of her at her court case in 1781. And in doing so, she gave most of her possessions, her land, her house, her goods to her daughter Elizabeth, to her grandchildren, and to her great-grandchildren. And when she died, she was buried with the Sedgwick family in their family plot, and her gravestone rests just next to Theodore and Pamela. She's the only non-family member to be buried with them, and it shows the place of importance and respect she had within the community and for the Sedgwick family.
About
So
that.
every year on August 21st, we celebrate Elizabeth, her legacy, and what she did by becoming the first person freed from slavery within the state of Massachusetts. And it was because of Elizabeth's courage and determination that the institution of slavery was finally abolished in the state of Massachusetts. And Elizabeth's life inspires us to take action against injustice to this day.
Well, there we go. Isn't that a cool story? Yep. I know, it's something else. I had to share it with you. And she's on this end of it, where young Phyllis was on the other end. And I think that's very interesting to go back and forth and see those end-to-end people, whether it was, a young girl writing, getting her first published book, which is, mind-blowing. If I had told you that after, not doing all these episodes, and I just said, hey, there was a young girl who, can you believe it? She did all these things. You wouldn't believe it. You're like, what? We never heard of that. We never heard that story, and there's so many underlying stories like this in every house, in every farm, in every, pub, in every, shopkeeper's house, blacksmith's place, whatever. There's all these stories, and, that should connect it right back to you, because you have your own story, you have your own journey, and you're going through whatever you're going through now. And I hope you can pull some hope and some, inspiration from these people. Can you imagine what it was like for her to take that walk, How did she get there? Did she borrow a horse? Did they let her do that? Or did she just get some spare time and just go? This is a woman who was determined, born into slavery, and determined to change her situation. And what he said there about, to wipe out injustice. Well, here we are, 248. Can you think of any injustice that might be going on? You know what I mean? Think about it. So maybe we can get some inspiration from these people. Lynn, what do you think?
Oh, I agree. And, I had never even heard that story about Mom Bet. So that was, a real eye opener. And I had never heard the story about the girl with the poetry either. So you're bringing a lot of information to light that, like you said, most people wouldn't know.
It's so important to reach down and touch these people in, their words, their heart, their soul, and understand in your hard times. You can look back. I've always got it, strength from that to look back and say, hey, look, if they didn't keep walking, I wouldn't be here. If they didn't make it through this, I wouldn't be here.
I know, right?
It's important. Yep. It's so easy to forget these things in the days of TikTok and Instagrams and, Starbucks and Buicks and things. Speaking of Buicks, where's Ted? We're missing Ted tonight. So I wanted to say this because Kat's been working really hard and she's been sending me stuff. And we pretty much gotten through a lot of it. But I did forget this last week and I wanted to make sure I got it in for this episode. So we're also talking about what they did during the day. How did they do, handle their stuff? How'd they eat? What did they do? Of course, it was seasonal going from, colony to colony. It was different in Georgia than it was in Massachusetts, I assure you. And if you're by the shore, more fish and things like that. And again, I think it's so neat that we still have that culture in each of these places, Lynn. And it's not just what you're surrounding. You're at a port, so you have boats, and fish, it's more, it's the people. It's the difference in the people and the culture and the love of where they are and respect for the land they're on and the cultures and the ice cream place that's been down the road for 50 years and the farm that's been in the same hands for 5, generations and things like this. There's so many crazy things going on with land grabbing and things for people right now that are going through stuff. I'm telling you, never give up hope. If you can't do it alone, get together in a group, because I guarantee you there's somebody in the same spot you're in. So do it together. Don't take no for an answer. Small groups change everything. Look at the people we're talking about.
That's true. Even people, one person at a time can change things too.
Yep.
Just like those women. They were one person. Yeah. And they made change.
One person. One person, yep. So colonial American cuisine was shaped by diverse influences. Native Americans introduced corn, beans, and squash. Of course, we can imagine that. African, European, and Caribbean cuisines contributed spices. This was very important because a lot of times we found out about that black pepper wasn't just black pepper. It was Jamaican black pepper. And Jamaican black pepper had a lot of healing qualities to it, a lot of antibodies, things like that to help you boost your immune system. Let's just say that. Help you ward off stuff. And it was also a preservative in food, which is why they could make that black pepper bread and have it last so long. So very interesting thing. If you need a preservative and somebody that can send you some Jamaican pepper. But there's a lot of herbs like that. So if you're interested in that thing, do some research or you'll be surprised. So Johnny cake, a simple food made of cornmeal, water, salt, cooked on a griddle until golden brown, providing a satisfying, filling meal. Oh, I missed a line here. From hearty stews and sweet desserts, their cuisine reflected a blend of necessity, creativity, and simplicity. Makes perfect sense. Colonial apple pie, a delightful dessert featuring thinly sliced apples, sugar, spices baked in a fluffy crust, delivering a taste of comfort, nostalgia. That would be great if you had an orchard. I think one of the guys on our thing tonight comes back from the war, and he's got some cider plans in his future. I think he said succotash, a wholesome dish made with corn, lima beans, and sometimes bacon, simmered together to create a flavorful and nutritious side dish. Well, that's a crowd favorite right there. It's got bacon in it. Pepper pot, a savory soup boasting a rich broth made with tripe. Now, what's the tripe? Isn't that a stomach lining? Is that?
Yes, it's the intestine. Yeah, stomach. Yeah, not intestine. Yeah, the stomach lining. It's that honeycomb looking thing.
Yeah. Vegetables and seasons perfect for warming the soul on a cold day. I'll take your word for it. Shrewsbury cakes, delight Delicate cakes flavored with rose water. Isn't that nice? There's a lot of rose water stuff going on, and it's still around today. And caraway seeds offering a sweet treat enjoyed with tea or a light dessert. Fried green tomatoes. That's a great movie. Green tomatoes coated in cornmeal or flour, then fried into crispy perfection, embodying the simplicity and resourcefulness of colonial cooking. Indian pudding. A comforting dessert made with cornmeal, milk, molasses, and warm spices, baked until thick and pudding-like, evoking a sense of warmth and nostalgia. Codfish cakes. It's probably good. A savory dish made with salted cod mixed with mashed potatoes, onions, and seasoning, then fried until a golden brown, creating a flavorful and hearty meal. It doesn't sound too bad.
No, it doesn't sound
And
too
then
bad.
Marlboro pie. She's got a picture here, I think. Pardon me. Marlboro pie is going to have 12 spoons of stewed apples, 12 of wine, 12 of sugar, melted butter, beaten eggs, a little cream, spice to your taste. Lay in a paste. I guess number 3 must be a certain type of pie crust on another card. Into a pie crust, lay into a deep dish, bake 1 hour and a quarter. And that is from 1796 from somebody named Amelia Simmons, who probably fed her family well. So there's that. She sent this little thing over, which I think is adorable. And we get to watch Kat experimenting with one of these. I have it. Okay, let me try it this way. With one of these recipes. Is that it? I think that's it. Now we're about to be surprised.
Hey guys, it's Kat. Here's some of my homemade Johnny cake. Just mix it up, pour it in there, and bake it. Easy as can be. And a modern tip for some corn.
It's just a little modern tip I've picked up, and the corn tastes just like eating it right off the cob.
Just shave it off. And don't be afraid to get all those little bits off of there. Give it some elbow grease. Throw it in a bowl. And you can also get you a skillet, get a little bit of flour, milk, throw it in there. Get it good and hot till there's a paste, and mix in your corn, and you can make some cream corn.
Wow. How about that? Thank you, Kat.
Yeah, thank
Pretty
you,
cool.
Kat.
How about that?
How did it taste? I wonder.
Good, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Good, I'm sure. So many things with the corn. How do I get this back off? I lost it. There it is. Is that it? Yeah. Okay. There. All right.
Yeah.
Good. All right. Sounds good. So listen, guys, we're settling in. We're going to watch this one together. And without further ado, Lynn, anything you'd like to say ahead of time on this? Or
Nope, I'm good, but watching her make that made me hungry. I was just finishing up my little peanut butter and jelly sandwich for my dinner.
There you go. I'm going to have some shortbread and some tea. Shortbread and tea. Let me see if I can get this sucker rolling here. Here we go. Let me right about here, I think. Yeah.
Is brought to you by Norwest, banking, investments, and insurance. We care about our communities and the value of education, and are proud to support this series. Norwest to the nth degree. Major funding is also provided by the National Endowment for the Humanities, expanding America's understanding of who we were, who we are, and who we will be. The Arthur Vining Davis Foundations. The Eberly Foundation. The Corporation for Public Broadcasting, and by annual financial support from viewers like you.
Hello, I'm Forrest Sawyer. Welcome to the 6th and final program in our series, Liberty. In every period of history, there are problems that seem to attract the greatest minds of the age. In our time, they're in the fields of science and technology. In the 18th century, the question of the age was government, how to form a government that could protect liberty and endure. It's one thing to win a revolution. It's quite another to avoid a dictatorship and create a system of government that preserves the freedoms for which people fought. This was the problem facing the 13 states in 1783. To fight the war, they had joined together somewhat reluctantly into a loose federation. All real power, the power to tax, to raise armies, to enforce treaties, rested not with the Continental Congress, but with the states. There was no president of the country, no national court system, no Washington, D.C. The French, realistic as always, prepared to send 13 separate ambassadors, one to each of the states. The War of Independence is over, but the fate of the American Revolution has yet to be decided.
Isn't that something? 13 different delegates from the French to go to each country just to, you got to get your stuff together here. You know, to each state, I mean, colony. They weren't states yet. So simple. Y'all know who Edward Herman is? The lead vampire in Lost
I have
Boys.
the honor of surrendering into the hands of Congress the trust which you have given me. Many years ago, when I accepted your commission, I never thought I had the abilities to accomplish so difficult a task. But these doubts were always overcome by a belief in the justice of our cause. Having completed the work assigned to me, I retire from the great theater of action. For many years, I have acted under orders from this august body. And now, I bid an affectionate farewell to Congress. I return my commission and take leave of public life.
Which was amazing.
Washington's surrender of his sword to Congress was an electrifying event throughout the world. I mean, it just captivated the world because nobody of his stature who had led successful revolution or war had ever done such a thing. I mean, in history, it seemed Caesar, Cromwell, Marlborough, all these victorious generals expected political rewards commensurate with their military achievement.
He could have been king. Congress, in effect, offered him a crown. He spurned it. And in the process, he gave us a whole new definition of greatness, which was renunciation of power, not the embrace of it. And it's no accident that on his deathbed, Napoleon said they wanted me to be another Washington.
After the war, Washington settles down in his beloved Mount Vernon to become, once again, a planter and a businessman. He is confident that he will never again be in the public eye.
I find myself thinking of the days of my youth, gone, to return no more. I am now descending the hill that I've been 52 years in climbing. I'm from a short-lived family, and soon I will be entombed in the dreary mansions of my ancestors. But I shall not complain. I have had my day.
Poor thing thinks he's going to retire.
The end of the war and Washington's resignation leave 13 little republics held together by a loose alliance. The wisdom of time and the lessons of history all point to the inevitable. There will be states, but they will not be united.
It was not all that different from the present European community, which is trying to put together a similar kind of organization to bring together disparate states. That's the way the United States was. Massachusetts and Virginia were separate states. When people talked about their country, they meant my country, Virginia, my country, Massachusetts. So bringing these states together was no simple task.
It wasn't clear whether the states were going to be part of some perpetual union. They might have, or they might not have. People talked in terms of 2 or 3 confederations, perhaps, or no confederations, just 13 separate governments.
During the next 5 years, this big question remains: 13 countries or one consolidated nation? Fought not with bullets and swords, but words and pamphlets, it is the last and greatest battle of the American Revolution.
This is just amazing.
1783, the war is over, and the entire country celebrates. In the peace treaty with England, the Americans have gotten almost everything they asked for, from control of the West all the way to the Mississippi River, to the right to dry their catch of codfish on the shores of Nova Scotia. The soldiers are returning home, and people are filled with optimism about what the future will bring, the pursuit of happiness in a rich and plentiful land.
And I would love thee every day, every night we'd kiss and play, if with thee you'd fondly stray, over the hills and far away.
I arrived home 14 days ago, after a very hard journey. The flax and spring wheat all dried up, but at least my orchard is full and blooming. I promised myself 40 barrels of cider. Mrs. Gilbert is a hearty woman. She's contented and happy now that I'm home, and only complains of one thing: the wolves. They howl through the night, disturbing her rest. Oh, why'd I have to sell my gun?
I recommend you don't do that. It's my opinion.
To our west lies land of inexpressible beauty and fertility. There, thousands of streams flow into the Mississippi, that prince of rivers.
Look who it is.
To which the Nile is but a rivulet, the Danube a mere ditch.
A lot of people in this. I love him.
For Americans, the Wild West is only several hundred miles inland. Most of the continent is still peopled by Indian tribes. With the coming of peace, the way is now open for a steady stream of migration. In time, this will decimate Native American culture. But in 1783, most Indians have never even seen a white man. For the losers of this war, the several 100,000 Americans who had chosen to remain loyal to the crown, the American victory is a disaster.
Listen closely.
Many are forced to flee. Some go to Canada to start a new life. Others to England.
So sad.
Many loyalists find that even here, in what they had always thought of as home, they do not really fit in.
November in London. Dark, heavy fog. No wonder British people hang themselves in winter. I spend my days as in a dream, thinking of the little cottage I left behind. What I would give right now for a Carolina peach. This is home, our mother country. Yet we are aliens here. The British are cold and formal. Perhaps I'm fit only for America, but there's no prospect of ever returning in safety. I must be content to finish my days among strangers.
So sad.
Fighting a
of it.
war which demanded the full participation of ordinary people has profoundly changed Americans.
All working
The old
together.
hierarchies are breaking down. Gone is the colonial world of deference.
When you end monarchy, you end the sense of being a subject. You end the sense of inequality pervading everywhere. And I think when you become a citizen, you're saying everyone is equal and not subject to anyone. You're equal to each other. And that had a pervasive effect. Servitude, for example, white servitude declined very rapidly and finally disappears altogether by 1800, whereas in the pre-revolutionary period, as many as half the population of Philadelphia had been, at one point in their lives, bonded servants. So you have a
Indentured
real
servant.
change.
Half. This same spirit touches African American slaves. In Massachusetts, a woman known as Mum Bet sues for her freedom, basing her claim on the principles of equality outlined in the state constitution. She wins her own emancipation.
Go ahead, girl.
John Adams and his wife Abigail find themselves in England, surrounded by a world of wealth and privilege.
Look at her now.
Adams has just been appointed ambassador of the United States to the court of King George III. When he presents his credentials to the king, he is received politely. His wife Abigail is
Can you
less
imagine?
than impressed by this old world of inherited power.
Dear sister, yesterday Mr. Adams and I visited the court of His Britannic Majesty. His Highness would look better if he did not drink so much. Her Majesty sits there stiff with diamonds. The whole family is inclined to corpulence. The princess is a short, clumsy miss of 15. The English boast of her beauty, but your simple American girl is much prettier. I stood there for 4 hours before His Gracious Majesty deigned to nod at me. Now I know to be looked down upon by sovereign pride is considered a mighty honor here, and I fear my expression was not sufficiently supplicant. There is a servility of manners here, a distinction between nobility and common citizens, which happily is foreign to Americans.
And should stay that way.
Peace. And a new scene opens. The object now is to make our independence work. To do this, we must secure our union on solid foundations. It's a job for Hercules, for we must level mountains of prejudice. Quit the sword, my friend. Put on the toga and come to Congress. We fought side by side to make America free. Let us, hand in hand, struggle now to make her happy.
Want to stop it real quick because who you just heard is the real Hamilton. That's Alexander Hamilton. He was arrogant. He was full of ideas, idealistic, and he was very unable to be moved. You know, he felt like his way was the only way. This is Lynn's guy. Lynn, what did you want to say about Hamilton? Are you ready for that? Or do you want to wait till after and you want to come in?
No, it's fine.
Because she's about to tell her thing. What grabbed you about him?
Bear with me 1 second.
Take your time. Take your time.
Took my ear things out.
Take your time. I didn't mean to call on you like that. I just wanted everybody to know that this was Hamilton because they didn't announce him in the beginning.
For one thing, he was illegitimate. So he was born and then he was raised in an orphan until he was taken by a prominent family who then educated him and made him the man that he was today. He is one of our founding fathers, and he did serve as the first Secretary of the Treasury. And the odd thing is even though he was one of the people to sign the Constitution, he still constantly had this undercurrent of a battle with the Vice President Burr. And how Hamilton ended up dying was they had a dueling fight, and Burr shot him in the stomach, and that's how he died.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. What do you think about, I don't know if you've seen the play. I've seen snippets of it. I didn't see the whole thing. But I think, it kind of got on this current thing of, history really doesn't matter. Let's just say it like we want to say it kind of thing. What did you think about that?
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I'm untangling myself here.
You're untangling. Let me cut a second. Go ahead. Untangle away. Take your time.
Again, please.
Just so I didn't blow anybody's ears out. Okay, you're good. Go ahead.
Okay, ask me what you had asked again, please.
I forgot. What was the question? It's okay. It doesn't matter. What I was saying about the Hamilton play, it got such a boost, and I get it. They put everybody in and inclusive, and they had women playing guy parts and all this other stuff, and I'm sure it was wonderful and very entertaining. But again, it's on the same as Sons of Liberty, where they just like, okay, here's some names you might know. We're gonna just tell it like we want to tell it. The show, the Broadway show. Yeah. So nothing like Hamilton. And, he really wasn't my favorite person. He did some things in there that, I like this, out of all these people, but he's nothing like they portrayed. This is the real guy, Do you agree with that?
I do agree with that. Yes.
All right.
Absolutely.
I'm going to play away here. If you're ready. Are you good?
I'm ready.
Feel free to jump in anywhere you want, sweetie.
Okay.
Alexander Hamilton is sitting as a delegate in the Continental Congress. Illegitimate, born in the West Indies, he came to New York City as a teenager to be educated. Unlike most of his fellow citizens, Hamilton has no attachment to any local region. Brilliant and arrogant, this 28-year-old is absolutely convinced that he knows where this young country should be going.
Hamilton saw very quickly the potential for the United States, for the new nation to become a world leader. He believed that every potential was here: natural resources, population, the isolation from European intrigues and war. Hamilton believed in systematic planning and in the kind of ruthless wrenching of America from its pleasant agrarian attachments into a mercantile and then into a manufacturing society. And he was single-minded in his interest in making America all that it could be.
Americans are just beginning to have a national vision. Artists and writers are the first to give expression to this nationalism. They mythologize the revolution itself, producing epic paintings, heroic battles of the war, Franklin and Washington raised to the level of gods. In this spirit, a 25-year-old graduate of Yale, Noah Webster, sets to work writing a speller for a new language.
Webster's Dictionary.
English.
What it became.
We've been children long enough. We must unshackle our minds and begin to act like independent beings. Let's not waste our lives mimicking our parents from other nations. We now have our own empire to defend and a national character to develop.
It's true. Interesting.
Hamilton and Webster are the visionaries. Their nationalism is shared by only a small minority of their countrymen.
People who had served in the war and who had moved around and served in different areas, and this is particularly true of the officer corps, those people had a sense of the larger political entity and of the promise of that entity. They could see the value of a continental union in the long term, in terms of national greatness.
But most Americans have never traveled more than 30 miles from the place where they were born. They view the world from a very local perspective.
There was great competition to establish your way of life as the better way of life. New Englanders, for instance, had fairly negative things to say about Southerners, who they thought of as decadent and as leisure-loving. They thought possibly the end of civilization was coming every time they saw a horse race or the men drinking or dueling or some activity that they considered to be not quite proper.
To the Southerners, the New Englanders seemed very suspicious and kind of plotting and not open and not very genteel. They're kind of crabbed, to use a word that they used. Of course, stereotypes are the way we understand people from other societies.
So interesting.
Free
Same
from
country.
British control, each state pursues its own independent course. Each state adopts its own system of government and prints its own currency. Some use English pounds as the standard. Others use Spanish dollars. For most Americans, this local independence of the separate states is just fine. They are fiercely proud of their liberty to control their own fate. That's why they fought the revolution. And this is what they have won. But
And
during
now
this
starts
time,
the trouble.
all is not well with the country as a whole. At Mount Vernon, George Washington is receiving a series of letters from friends and former military men. Alexander Hamilton writes from Congress that without an army or a navy, America is completely powerless to deal with international problems.
England should have long ago returned our lands in the West. Spain blocks our ships from the Mississippi. How do we defend our rights as a country? Do we have troops, a national treasury, or even a national government? We have a shadow of a federal government where 13 petty republics must agree on every point of every measure the Union wants to execute. The result? Nothing happens. The states have brought the wheels of national government to a standstill.
You really
He's right.
see Hamilton tearing his hair and mumbling dirty whack-a-frass as the revolution ends, because the Confederation government to him is absolutely nothing that's going to build the America he wants it to be. He has no patience whatsoever with this loose agreement. He sees very clearly that the states are going to go back to squabbling with each other. He wants a uniform currency. He wants uniform internal trade within the country. And when he sees Rhode Island charging Massachusetts a tariff every time someone brings eggs from one state to the other, he's absolutely disgusted.
Sometimes I think I'm wasting my time in public service. I hate Congress. I hate the world. A mass of fools and knaves. I hate myself.
Alexander Hamilton,
Border
ladies and gentlemen.
disputes smolder between the states. Pennsylvania is fighting with Connecticut over which state will control land to the west. It is clear that these might become full-fledged shooting wars. Observers in England smugly declare that all this is inevitable.
The popular opinion certainly believed that the American experiment couldn't possibly survive. It was remarkably liberal. The government was very weak. The country was very extensive. And there was really no possibility of this absurdly new, fresh government surviving more than a few years. It would disintegrate.
One underlying crisis overshadows everything else.
The United States was bankrupt. It had no ability to tax. All it could do was request the states to give it money. Financial situation was very, very serious, with huge war debts that had to be paid if you're going to restore the credit of the country.
The states are slipping into an economic depression. Americans are dividing into two camps,
Debts and
creditors
debtors.
and debtors.
Yeah.
We are oppressed by the very men whose property we fought for, whose independence we bled for. Yes, we owe money to these men, whose purses are their conscience, who hear their lust for wealth louder than the cries of the poor and the needy. They grow fat while debtors go to jail. They buy up our land for $1 an acre. If their God-provoking, self-serving crimes go unpunished, can we believe there is a hell below?
In 1786 in Massachusetts, the antagonism between the debtors and creditors breaks out into open conflict. Angry farmers arm themselves and march on the state courthouse in Springfield. The local militia join with the farmers. Daniel Shays, the leader of the insurgents, becomes a folk hero. Soon, debtor rebellions are breaking out in all 13 states. The debtors are by far the majority. The popularly elected legislatures pass laws which, in effect, cancel all debts, trampling on the property rights of the creditors.
I was as strong a believer in popular government as any man in America. But it is rapidly becoming the last kind of government I should choose. I'd even prefer a limited monarchy at this time. Better the whims of one man than the ignorance and passions of the mob.
Shays' rebellion shapes
Human
people's
beings.
belief in popular government. There is now a rumor circulating through the states that Nathaniel Gorham, president of the Continental Congress, has
Listen to
approached
this.
Prince Henry of Prussia. Our free institutions of government have failed, he is quoted as saying. Will you please come to America and be our king?
This is so funny.
Prince Henry is said to have reminded Gorham that Americans did not get along very well with their last king and to have curtly declined the offer.
That's a wise move.
May 1787. Philadelphia, America's largest city, is abuzz with excitement. The most celebrated leaders from the states are coming to town.
Here they come.
Shays' rebellion has convinced them that something must be done, and it will happen here in Philadelphia.
Here it comes. Love this
The
part.
delegates are coming to a city which rivals some of the great centers of culture and power in Europe. The streets are paved, and some are even lit at night. The artist Charles Wilson Peale offers the public a natural history museum, displaying wonders such as mammoth bones and stuffed golden pheasants. He also spends the next few months painting this portrait of the most celebrated American of the day. Washington has reluctantly come out of retirement to lend his prestige to this convention. Most delegates come expecting to revise the Articles of Confederation, the loose agreement among the states, which is the basis of their union. But a small group is convinced that the Articles will have to be completely scrapped. One of them is James Madison, a shy, scholarly Virginian, whose voice is so faint that at meetings he is constantly being told to speak up.
If I had had more time, he would have been my guy too.
Madison was about 5'1". He had a high, squeaky voice.
Love him.
I mean, Steven Seagal could not play James Madison.
Where did that date her?
He was the antithesis of the bold and strong government-building hero. He was extraordinarily erudite, very much an intellectual, and he had read political philosophy, old and new.
The big problem will be the degree of authority which the federal government will have over the states. In the ancient governments, even where there wasn't some strong central authority, there was always some controlling power. And everyone knows what happened to the Amphictyons. The same thing happened to the Achaean League. Too much local authority.
I think every age has some major issue that people understand as a kind of an agenda for that generation, a major problem that is to be resolved. In the 18th century, clearly, it was the problem of government. How could you design a government, a new government, a government that didn't have kings, didn't have hereditary rule, that could function, that could be stable? Republics of the past had been significantly short-lived, characteristically short-lived. The great republics were gone. What had happened to Rome? What about the English Commonwealth? What had happened to Greece?
Never before had a people deliberated and deliberately created a new country. And this, I think, gave them a tremendous sense of excitement, but also awe and responsibility. I mean, they felt, they used the term, we have the responsibility of millions yet unborn.
The delegates troop into the Pennsylvania State House. They seat themselves informally at green baize-covered tables, 3 or 4 to a table. And then, silence. The first vote of the convention is to keep their proceedings absolutely secret.
They did that, not in a conspiratorial way, but in the conviction that if they were accountable to the public for everything they said and did, that nobody would say or do anything. So Philadelphians didn't know a lot about what was going on. They knew this group was meeting there, but there's remarkably little in Philadelphia newspapers about what was going on. People did keep this oath of secrecy. They did not leak during this hot summer.
Over the next months, rumors spread like a thick undergrowth. George Washington's dour expression as he leaves the convention hall one day prompts a report that the delegates are in disarray. Some people on the outside are convinced that the delegates are up to no good. Virginia's former governor, Patrick Henry, for one.
I smell a rat.
On July 3rd, the thermometer tops 90 degrees with a drenching humidity that exhausts the delegates. Blinds cover the windows and keep out the sun and noise from the streets. When they are opened, they let in the flies. In between meetings, the delegates do what they can to find relief. They have their portraits made by an apparatus which produces an exact silhouette of a person's features.
This is amazing.
50 years before the invention of photography, these are actual images of Madison, Franklin,
Look at that.
and Washington. Shadows captured from another era.
Isn't that beautiful?
Reporters trying to figure out what the delegates are doing have to contend with shadows as well, for the total news blackout continues. They know that something serious is going on behind the closed doors. 2 of the 3 delegates from New York State have gone home in protest. After almost 4 months of exhausting debates, the delegates emerge with a plan to completely scrap the Articles of Confederation. They have written a blueprint for a new nation.
This convention created a constitution of an entirely new government, very, very different from the Articles of Confederation, because it was a national government in its own right, with its own president, its own Senate and House of Representatives, its own court system that would reach right down to individuals, have coercive power over individuals in a way that the Confederation never dreamed of.
The Founding Fathers have addressed the issue of power in an entirely new way. They have put forward the idea that only in a large democracy, with an extensive system of checks and balances, can you protect the rights of the minorities from potential tyranny by the majority. It was a revolution in democratic thought.
Prior to that, philosophers had said, if, and it was a huge if democracy is possible anywhere at all, it has to be in a small face-to-face society. Pericles, Athens, Rousseau's Geneva, something of the sort. Now, said Madison, no, the secret is an extensive republic. An extensive republic that will allow you to have a saving multiplicity of factions. The more the merrier. Faction used to be considered the great enemy of democracy. Madison said, no, wrong, completely wrong. Faction will be the savior of democracy. Because by having more competing factions, more diversity in the modern language, you will have, again, you will prevent the emergence of a stable, potentially oppressive majority.
The biggest danger to our rights today is not from governments acting against the will of the majority, but from government which has become the mere instrument of this majority. Think about it.
Sounds familiar.
That's where the abuse of power comes from. Not the tyranny of the king, but the tyranny of the majority. Wrong will be done as much by an all-powerful people as by an all-powerful prince.
The text of the Constitution is sent to the printers. It is only a proposal. It will not become the law of the land unless it is accepted and approved by the country as a whole. September 19th, 1787. The Constitution is made public. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, to ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America.
Absolutely.
For the majority of the country, expecting only a revision of the Articles of Confederation, it is a real shock.
They asked me how I could be against the new Constitution when our friend General Washington will be the first president under it. That's fine, I say, but how about when General Sloshington or who knows what scoundrel becomes the second president?
Look at the Senate being created by the new Constitution. 6 years, and they can be reelected as long as they please. It's really an appointment for life. And they'll be in this new federal city, surrounded by walls of gold, gold flowing in from all our pockets. And they'll live in this Eden with their fellow senators, far away from any knowledge of how ordinary people live.
He's not wrong.
They had just come out of a war. They had just come out of a war. They had risked their lives to fight for no taxation without representation and the power of local government, and all men are created equal. And within a few short years, what is being proposed but the creation of a central government that looks suspiciously to them just like the British government that they have been fighting against.
We have several things in our favor. Everyone loves Washington, and he supports it. All the commercial interests are on our side. They want a government which can regulate trade. The people with money, of course, are with us. They need protection against the too democratic spirit of the state legislatures. On the other side are all those inferior men with very superior positions in local government. They're afraid of losing their power to a national government where, of course, they don't stand a chance of getting elected. And then there are the people. They're suspicious of strong government, and they don't like paying taxes. I can't even guess what's about to happen. Everything now depends on the incalculable fluctuations of human passions. We'll know in several months whether it is yes or no.
Over the next 6 months, the Constitution becomes the major topic of conversation in all 13 states. The debate involves people from every class of society.
There was a perfectly extraordinary outpouring of public concern, writing and exchanges of letters, pamphlets, broadsides, songs, everything under the sun during that period of time, pro and con the Constitution. It's, in my estimation, the greatest outpouring of political thinking in Western history.
At issue, what system would best protect the liberty won by the Revolution?
Amazing. It's an amazing document.
Those who oppose the Constitution are known as the Anti-Federalists. As the debates intensify, it is clear that they are in the majority.
If you ask, what is the source of this? What is the agitation all about? What are the Anti-Federalists concerned about? It's the fear of the creation of this amount of centralized national power. And it's an effort to state those fears, the fear of a national army, the fear of a taxing power of the national government, a fear of executive authority, a fear of aristocracy that could be built into this through the Senate. It's a long series of fears that people who are still devoted to the original principles of the revolution saw as developing out of the Constitution proposed.
Governmental power will introduce itself into every corner of the country. It will wait upon the ladies at their toilette. It will enter the house of every gentleman, watch over his cellar, wait upon his cook in the kitchen. It will penetrate into the most humble cottage. And it will touch the head of every person in the United States. And to all these different people, the message from the government will be the same. Give, give, give.
This Constitution is an open invitation to Jews or heathens to take over our country. Soon we'll even have the immigration of peoples from the Eastern Hemisphere. All because there's no religious qualification for office. None.
The president can be reelected every 4 years, for life. Even if he loses an election, he still controls the army. So how will you get him off the throne? He's like a bad edition of a Polish king.
These lawyers and men of learning, these moneyed men who talk so finely and gloss over the details so smoothly to make us poor folks swallow down the pill, they're the ones who will go to Congress. They'll get all the power and all the money into their own hands, and they'll swallow up all us little folks.
The other side of it was the effort of the Federalists, those in favor of the Constitution, not only to calm those fears, but to explain the way in which they were unreal.
You keep talking about this aristocracy. I don't understand the meaning of this word. There aren't any kings or princes in America. In America, every capable person is an aristocrat, and they are the people who should be running the government. Remember, sir, we elect our leaders. The people are free to choose whomever they please to govern them. Good people, smart people, yes, even rich people may be elected. But they can also be kicked out of power if they don't represent the will of the people who elected them.
Why should you have confidence in a person elected to your state legislatures as opposed to someone elected to the federal legislature? Is there some magic spell that converts honest men to tyrants when they become delegates to Congress?
Yes, this is new. Yes, it's never been tried. Many things Americans have done we've never tried before. We've accomplished a revolution which has no parallel in the annals of human society. We have set up governments which have no model on the face of this globe. And now we can improve on this great confederacy. On this, you must deliberate and decide.
Always we debate this question. We're debating it in Washington now as to how powerful the federal government should be. That's what American politics is all about.
Mm-hmm.
And they set the terms, especially during the great turmoil of ratification.
It's no small feat.
Winter 1788. Special conventions are called in the states to approve or reject the new Constitution. If 9 states ratify, the Constitution will become the law of the land. But it is clear that this will be an uphill battle. The first real test is in Massachusetts.
The majority of the delegates that went to the Massachusetts ratifying convention were probably opposed to it. Their towns had debated the federal constitution. They decided it went too far. This was no good. And the delegates are going to have to go back and live with their towns. So they come in instructed to vote against. The Federalists say, but let's talk about this a while. And they debated provision by provision. And the Federalists are extremely skilled debaters. They're able to explain an awful lot. For example, a Senate with a 6-year term. Who heard of such an outrageous thing as a 6-year term? In Massachusetts, all office holders were elected every year, where annual elections end, tyranny begins. That was the slogan. Well, the Federalists said, you know, the Senate's a little different than institutions you're used to. It has to deal with foreign affairs. People elected to the Senate won't have a lot of experience. You need some time in office to exercise the responsibilities of the Senate responsibly. Okay, next point. And then the Federalists have come up with another argument. So one unanswerable objection after another was being answered by Federalist opponents.
Can you imagine?
at a certain point in the Massachusetts Convention, the anti-federalists realize they're being outdebated. They say, oh, what's the point of this anyway? Let's just vote it down and go home.
But
and
wait.
At that point, Samuel Adams had been very quiet.
There's my
He was
man.
not a good speaker. He had a lisp. He says,
Come on, Sam.
this isn't something we should rush. This is very important. I came here to learn, and I find I'm learning more every day. We should continue this debate. We shouldn't simply have the vote.
From beginning
the Federalists
to
defend
the
the
end.
Constitution clause by
Samuel
clause.
Adams.
They make each detail of the plan seem reasonable. But they have no answer for the anti-Federalists' biggest worry, that the proposed government will be simply too big and too powerful. The Constitution spells out the rights of government. Where, ask the anti-Federalists, is a similar listing of the basic rights of individuals? A Bill of Rights protecting ordinary citizens against this all-powerful government.
Our rights to a jury trial, freedom of the press, freedom of assembly. This is the true stuff of liberty. These inalienable rights that cannot be touched by any government. Without these guarantees, we might as well just appoint ourselves a king and take lessons in the art of bowing low.
This objection is answered by Federalists like Noah Webster.
I can understand a Bill of Rights to prevent kings and barons from encroaching on the rights of the people, but I don't see why we need a Declaration of Rights to protect us from our own elected legislature. In this new government, a Bill of Rights is absurd. It prevents what? Our own encroachments against ourselves?
Tell us that
Exactly.
restricting the unlimited power of the national government would be inconvenient. And so our property, our consciences, our very lives are to be left wholly to the tender mercy of the government and the Supreme Courts, which have been given only slightly less power than God Almighty.
Why not have a Bill of Rights? Why not a short document saying our rights are preserved? Are you worried that it will use up too much paper?
Tell him. Tell him.
Liberty is not protected by parchment barriers. It is the very system of this new government which will protect us. Government is separated into different branches, each with a different mode of election and each having different powers. Ambition will be made to counteract ambition.
In a perfect world.
In the end,
I know,
both
right?
sides are victorious. The Constitution is ratified by the states and becomes the law of the land. And Congress begins work on a Bill of Rights. Ironically, it is James Madison himself who drafts the document and
He sure
becomes
does.
its strongest supporter.
Yep.
Freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the right of trial by jury, freedom of the press. Over time, the Bill of Rights has proven to be as significant as the Constitution itself, the ultimate protection for the rights of a vast diversity of humanity who, in the centuries to follow, will call themselves American.
It's what makes us a single people. It's the only thing that makes us a single people, really, because we're not a nation in any traditional sense of the term. We're not an ethnicity. We're made up of everybody from the world. Every race, every nationality, every ethnic group is here and equally American. And they're equally American because they believe in these ideals.
They believe in the ideals.
Beliefs, these ideas that came out of the revolution are the adhesive that holds us together. We're the first nation, I suppose, in modern times.
It's comforting to think that ultimately slavery would have fallen of its own accord, or ultimately people would have seen the light in an enlightened age, that humanitarianism would have conquered, or maybe even economic interests would have thrown slavery out. We'll never know. Fact is, we'll never know. But what we do know is that it was never put up for public debate. It was never on the agenda in a serious way before the imperial crisis.
That's my guy.
It has been more than 25 years since a tax dispute led a group of American patricians to wage a war with the British.
Thomas.
Nobody in 1763 dreamed that you could govern a large country without a king.
Young Franklin. Young Franklin.
At the beginning of the American Revolutionary period, we lived in a late aristocratic world. The assumption was that wisdom, power, stability had to flow from the top to the bottom. At the end of the American Revolutionary period, that idea was dead as a doornail. And the assumption was that power, legitimacy, flowed upwards, and that the source of stability was a consenting mass. So one paradigm shattered, a new paradigm, the paradigm of modern politics, was in place.
It's one of the greatest ironies of human history that the American Revolution is sometimes considered no revolution at all. That honor goes to others, the French Revolution, the Russian Revolution, revolutions that fail to realize their promise of liberty, revolutions that ultimately failed. Our revolution, I think, is underestimated mainly because it succeeded. It set out to establish a government that was by the people, for the people, and it succeeded. The challenge was to create a republic, the first one in the history of the world, that could have any significant longevity. It succeeded beyond the wildest dreams of the revolutionaries.
A lot stronger than people think. Don't be fooled. It's a heck of a 25 years, Lynn.
I know, right?
We saw his tent.
Mm-hmm.
There's a huge parade today
Take him and do
to
a head count.
celebrate the birth of a free government. I'm struck not so much with the celebration itself, which is grand and happy, but the reason for it. We are not glorifying a victory won in the blood of one people over another. No city was reduced to ashes, no army conquered, no news of thousands slaughtered. Think of it, we're celebrating a triumph of knowledge over ignorance, of liberty over slavery.
Doesn't that make you
Blessings of
proud?
peace throughout
Yes.
the continent. People from all ranks are marching. Farmers, mechanics, every tradesman's boy rightly considers himself a principal in the business. This is the difference between a republican government and a monarchy in the minds of men. We are more than paid back for the sufferings of war and the disappointments of peace. So, it's done. We have become a nation.
To learn more about the American Revolution, the people...
I'm telling you what, folks.
That
It's
brings
a lot
tears
stronger.
to my eyes.
It's a lot stronger. Now, I can't play this song for you, but I highly recommend, if you don't want to watch the show and you just want to hear this song, because we'll get copyrighted and shut off. But this is James Taylor, and he's doing his song, Johnny Is Gone for a Soldier. And it speaks everything you just saw, because, again, they end it with, it wasn't free. and it's still not. And, you know, that's what I got to say. You know, freedom, you got to want it. It was fought hard. That was a long 25 years. Lynn, did you ever imagine, you know, you're writing little dates on trivia, or maybe, you know, filling out homework for the kids and stuff like that, and you're writing down, you know, the George Washington and all the, but when you really pull it apart like this and make it a story of us, it's so much deeper.
It is. It really, really is. Like I said, when he was reading that last part, I was getting chills. It brought tears to my eyes. It made me so proud, you know, and to know the truth. Again, the pieces all fall into place even easier than, you know, than what the kids are being, you know, taught about history.
Yeah.
They're even taking parts of history out and putting in other things now at this point too.
Yeah,
so
absolutely true. Listen, folks, Wikipedia. I mean, Samuel Adams would kick back and have a beer and put his foot up, you know, as gentlemanly as possible, and say, "No, that's propaganda," because they're going in and changing it in the middle of the night. You know, I know people that have pages. You know, people, professionals, they have a page. They won't even let the person it's about change it. It's like, you have something wrong, let me, you know, and they'll go back and do. I know multiple fights going on right now for that. So again, do your research. If you can get something like this, if you have DVDs and you have stuff that has history on them, you have books, printed books, hang on to them, you know, put them together. You know, I've got so many on history. I'm blessed, but not everybody does. And again, that's what one of the reasons for doing this was, you know, not just to refresh what you already knew, but tell you a few things that you may not have ever heard of or learned in school.
I learned a lot, that's for sure.
Absolutely. And the next one is going to be fun too. So Lynn, you're here all the way through the summer, you know, on the Sundays you can make it. The next thing, next Sunday, we're going to talk about, and I got a powwow with you during the week. So when you get time, give me a call, you know, tell me you can do a call. We're going to have to get together and powwow and see how we can best bring that, you know, the Sons of Liberty to life. You know, it's like 6 hours, but it goes through pretty much what we just saw. What I want to do with that, again, if you want to watch it, I highly recommend watching it.
I'm going to. Yeah,
I've seen it. Yeah. So at least the first, you know, the first episode. So if you're going to watch it, we'll do the first episode or whatever. We'll go through it. But it's basically to show you it's fun and it's entertaining and it's historic, you know, for sure. But you have a foundation now where you know pretty much what these guys did. So when it opens up that Samuel Adams, are after Sam, he looks, they're using a wonderful British actor, but they have him looking about 20, 23, 25. And he's all decked out in leather, heavy drinker, which Sam never was. And really kind of the ruffian in the neighborhood. He's just full of angst and anger, and he just wants to fist fight in the dark streets of Boston, Massachusetts. You know what I mean? He's like this. So the opening scene, spoiler alert, they're coming in to serve him a warrant, the bad British, you know, soldiers that they were. You know, it happened. But they come in and they make them out, you know, just no human stuff. Everybody's bad, you know. And they come in to get a warrant, and all his buddies hide him, and he goes up on the roof, and they're chasing him, jumping on rooftops all across Boston, Mass. He's fist fighting and causing distractions. This was not Samuel Adams, folks. What you just saw was Samuel Adams, beginning to end. And that's a good segue going into Sons of Liberty. So if you want to see it again, it is Tubi for free, Plex, I think, for free, all the streaming. I think they have it on, they don't play it on YouTube that I know of, not in this country. So there you go. That's our next thing. And I'll see you next Sunday. We'll talk about it. So Lynn, any closing remarks on this?
No, I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. You all are stuck with me for this next part. I feel enriched getting to be a part of this and getting to learn
it's been so much fun.
Some things. Yeah, it has been great. So I'm looking forward to it.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you. We're also going to keep doing the little things throughout. What was it like to be a soldier in the colonial army? You know, just because we're done with this doesn't mean we won't go back and add in recipes. And, you know, again, some of these recipes, these old recipes, if you're having it tough and you need to make stuff last longer, try one, look it up now, print it out, get an old book, go to a thrift store, grab some, you know, preserving stuff that way. But know that some of the stuff they had is, you know, much better than what we have now. And little things matter. Like I said, the Jamaican black pepper is different than the black pepper you're going to get down to your local Kroger's or Piggly Wiggly. Okay.
Right. And
so look into herbs if you're going to get into it. You can grow so many good things, especially medicinal stuff right there. Even if you have an apartment or a patio, you can do all that. Look into it. Let this inspire you. Like I said in the question, if history is being written today, what would they write about you? Who would you be most like? You know, who would you at least hope you would be the most like? You know, Sybil Ludwig. You know, they knocked at her door at 1:00 in the morning. She jumped on her horse and she ran through all the towns, telling them that the redcoats were coming. You know, I mean,
Martha Washington. That would
Martha Washington. She was great. She was a strong lady. She did a lot of good.
Mhm.
You know, Abigail Adams trying to fight for women's rights back then. It took them a long time too. Trust me, guys. You know, so why do these things take so long? It seems to make so much sense. Well, think about the guys in Congress, in Independence Hall. You know, how much arguing and you know, just listening to all the ideas and the debating. And I think we've actually lost the art of debate, where people could disagree in a room and come out agreeing on something. You know, I think it's done every day in small groups, but again, it can be done. It can be done. I hope you were inspired. And Lynn, this has been great. I hate for it to be over, but it's not over, because we have Sons of Liberty and Turn. So if you want to get a head start on Turn, that is the series. It's 3 seasons. If you want to, I'm not going to do them all because I can put all that Culper's Ring into one big thing. But if you want to watch it, I'll be watching it with you. So right after Sons of Liberty, I am going to start watching a couple seasons of Turn, and we'll figure out a way to show that to, you know, stills or something like that, and talk about that, because the main focus on that is going to be how historically accurate that was. It was pretty darn close. And the Culper Ring, the spies, General Washington's spies, believe me, there's a lot more we didn't cover, right, Lynn?
Yes, absolutely.
So we'll be rewinding and going back into the Revolution on some of the really interesting stuff, some of the in-depths on like some of the battles and things that happened on the battlefield and stuff. Lynn, this has been wonderful. What are you doing this week?
Oh gosh.
Besides being with me Sunday.
Well, let's see. Tuesday I'm on, as I mentioned, Aquarius Rising Africa with Chantel Mayberg. I've got, I just pre-recorded a couple of things. And of course, the thing with Steve Stockton that we did together is
Oh,
gonna
yeah,
be
yeah,
coming
yeah.
out.
Oh, that was so
It's gonna
good.
be
We had
coming
so
out
much
too.
fun.
We did. Oh, and everybody, don't forget to give this a thumbs up, subscribe,
Please
and
do.
to hit
Please
the
do.
notification bell, because that's important. The notification bell for
Please do.
the algorithms that they're all doing. My daughter's been dying around the corner. I've had a herd of fluffalo running through here the whole time
It's
on my
okay.
feet, so I keep
She's so
having
busy.
to move. And
She's got kittens. She's got baby kittens. She's, oh my goodness, so babies. Look at the beans, tiny beans. Oh God, look. Hello, precious. Hello, baby.
There you go.
Hello, you little love. So I know you're busy,
6
honey.
of 'em.
Well, 6 of them.
6.
Wow. She's taking good care of them, folks. And thank you so much, Kat, for all the recipes and everything. Keep
Yes.
them coming.
Great.
And listen, if you guys want to see anything, like I loved going through the tour. Again, thanks to that channel. I'm sorry I got the wrong name, but we showed it. So go in and give him a thumbs up too, if you will. He did a great job. We got to see the Liberty Bell and get close to some of these things. If we can't get out of our house and get in a, you know, whatever, wherever you are, you know, you get to see some of these things. And I think that makes the whole thing more tangible and
It does.
believable, and puts you there and puts you in that frame of mind, you know. And once you think about what all these people went through, what you're going through, you might get a little bit of extra oomph and a little bit of more pep in your step or whatever. Remember these people, because they were actually around, and we shouldn't let them change their history or tear down their statues or take them off of the damn maple syrup bottle, or, like the
I
butter.
know. I
This so
know.
typical, this crazy world we are in Oz. They take the butter, right? They take the Native American off, but they kept the land.
Yeah.
Wonderful. The labels. Talk about your propaganda. All we're left is Mr. Salty and the Quaker guy on the oats. Or is he gone too? How come he gets to stay?
Yeah.
Who's making these rules? What the hell is going on?
I don't know.
Something
some of these people were very proud to be on the label of things
That one
back in the
breaks my
day
heart.
because it was
Yep.
a big deal, So
Yep.
Oh,
And we
this
learned right here
Quaker?
where she started. She started at the Chicago Fair, right, guys? We listened to, if you were here for that episode, and they went up to her and they hired her, and she was fantastic at it. And they gave her a chance, and she said, "Absolutely, let's do it." She was so proud to be on
Any gray ones?
the cover of that box. You know what I mean? It's crazy, Aunt Jemima. So
Yes.
anyhow, I hope you learned some things tonight. Thank you guys for being here. Lynn, go and thank your family for your time away. And I love you, girl. See you next
Love you.
Sunday. I'll be talking to you this week. Thanks, sweetie.
Yes. Bye, everybody. Love you. Bye. Have a great
We love
week.
you. They're
Bye-bye.
sending you love, sweetheart.
Aw.
Good night, darling.
Love you guys. Bye-bye.
Okay, guys, I'm going to get you guys out of here too. I love you so much. I'm sad that this documentary is over. But, if you like doing this, we might do one next summer or, in the winter or something like that. It keeps your mind off of things. It keeps us together. And I get to learn what you guys know out there. Now, Froze, you said there was something on Prime. Is it Sons of Liberty is on Prime as well? Is that what it is? Is it Sons of Liberty or Turn? Because I think Turn is. But we'll put that down. And any kind of information you guys want to throw down, if you know of another documentary or books like Kat dropped earlier, that if you want to continue this, in your own way and, go down your own rabbit hole or go look up one of these wonderful people and learn more about them and their words. Sons of Liberty, thank you. And please do, because again, they're full of inspiration. These are actual people who went through actual turmoil and trauma and drama, and for something that they truly believed in. And I think we all have those. So I hope it brought you some joy. And if you need to shake off a little more of that blues, there's one way we do it around here. Kick off our shoes and dance the blues away. See you tomorrow night with Steve. I have no idea what we'll be talking about, but we'll be talking. Hope to see you then, 8 p.m. tomorrow. Good night, everybody. Be good humans. Oh, and don't forget, before we leave right here, let me throw this up here because I have last little word here from Miss Elizabeth Freeman. There she is, Mom Bet, the story of Elizabeth Freeman. I heard that paper read yesterday that says all men are created equal, and that every man has a right to freedom. I'm not a dumb critter. Won't the law give me my freedom? Yes, it will, darling. And she wound up being able to leave a house, a little land, and a couple other things to her children and her grandchildren. So don't you ever give up. So let's dance. Love y'all. Good night. Be good humans.